Hello and welcome to Say Hi to the Future, Ingenious Thinkers, a podcast aimed at highlighting the human side of ingenuity. My name is Ken Tencer, curator of Say Hi to the Future, helping leaders think differently in the face of uncertainty and ambiguity. Better thinking, better outcomes. Today I'm joined by Carey-Ann Oestreicher, CEO and executive coach of Potential Unlimited. Carey-Ann helps leaders and teams unlock their full potential through resilience, mindfulness, and authentic leadership. Her own journey from corporate executive to global coach gives her a powerful perspective on what it truly means to lead and thrive. Carey-Ann, welcome to Say Hi to the Future.
Hi, Ken. It's great to be here.
So, it's been pretty crazy the last 3, 4, 5 years, and I know you're dealing with coaching at the highest level. It's one thing when the world is unpredictable because it's simply unpredictable, and there's another thing where you go from the pandemic to these, forced unpredictable, behaviors or events, and I'm just seeing CEOs going, oh man, let's get back to the good old days where just stuff happens because that's the way the world is. But when you just can't guess, leading must be hell.
Yeah. And, I think, unfortunately, in some ways, it's goodbye to the good old days as we knew them, navigating life and work as leaders, because it does seem like there's one thing after the next, but the pace in this world is just moving so quick. So part of it is really helping leaders to kind of find some balance. And I don't mean balance in terms of work-life balance, but I mean actually ground and center themselves to be able to sway a little bit as things come at them and be able to pivot. Because that's the new way of leadership, is being able to be adaptable and pivot. Mm-hmm. That's right up there with the traits.
And I find too that there are quite a few CEOs in their early 60s who've been at it for a while that thought they were going to work a little bit longer. And because of the last year or so, just went, you know what? Let's pass it on to the next generation. We need to get ready for, as you call it, this new reality, and let the next gen just of leadership, senior leadership, take it on.
I understand that, and I see that. But before those people hand in their resignation letters, I actually challenge them to say, hey, maybe could I learn? Could I pivot? Because I think we're comfortable and there's a bit of fear, and nobody, especially at the top of their game, wants to look like an idiot and not know what they're doing. But the reality is none of us know what we're doing. And it's exciting. This is a really exciting time to be a leader, but it does require different characteristics, different skills. There is a learning, but I think for anybody at any age who's up for that challenge, the rewards are plentiful.
So what are some of the things that we need to learn, that we need to take on to be up to that challenge?
Well, if we look at just AI, and I know that's only one part of what's going on in the world, the way that we have been leading before. So in the past, the leader is traditionally the expert. So if people on staff are, unsure of a certain direction, they will come to the leader. The leader will, help them figure it out. And then the person goes off and does their thing. But nowadays, we can't go up against a machine in terms of knowledge. Yes, AI doesn't always get it right. Yes, you need to double check all that information and so forth. But that's a fact checker thing. That's not a leadership thing. What leaders need to be able to pivot around, and this is what I help leaders with now, is leaning into our competitive advantage, which is being a human being and human leadership, because we can't do the knowledge game anymore. That's done. We've kind of lost that to AI. So now it's about leaning into resilience, your ability to develop relationships, to be empathetic, compassionate, build trust, have really good questions, and building that space around that. And this isn't an introvert, an extrovert. It doesn't mean just because you're an extrovert, oh yeah, you're going to thrive better than an introvert in this environment. 100% no. It's about using your human abilities and really bringing them to the workplace in a way that we have never done before. So this is exciting.
Well, I think it is. And I mean, we were chatting just before, this recording started, and I'm just finishing a doctorate in human ingenuity. And it's sort of the pyramid. I look at human versus artificial ingenuity, but it's to remind people that emotions and gut intelligence, how we see, how we feel, how we understand, or the perspectives that we build are to your point, our secret weapon.
Yeah. And, I think a lot of people are not so comfortable with truly feeling, right? Especially some of the uncomfortable emotions, right? Like you have to kind of just actually feel it to be able to then lead with that. So it's kind of bringing in some of that psychology piece with the leadership piece. And again, that ability to be resilient and to pivot. So it's been a really fun journey. And I say journey because I actually think we're just on the beginning cusp of this, to help leaders be able to make those changes because they help them in all areas of their lives too.
Well, and that's why, as you talk about it, that's why I find what you do so critical. I mean, leaders kind of about my age will say, I mean, my late father was a brilliant entrepreneur, and you and I have known each other for well, I'll just say a long time. It's quite, I'm going to say decades. I won't say decades, but, when I was writing my second book and it was around entrepreneurship and the human side of innovation, I remember talking to my dad and talking about, how we engaging people, reaching out, and he goes, but whose company is it?
Yeah.
And he didn't mean it in a negative way. That's how he was brought up. Like, it's my company. I'm signing at the bank. Why am I asking the world? And I think I broke through a little bit on explaining, more eyes, more insights, etc. But a lot of us just weren't prepared for what we're doing today.
Yeah. And another topic is around energy management too, because I find, leaders have been traditionally really good at, obviously keeping an eye on finances and like the revenue and all those sorts of things. And even strategy, like measuring goals and measuring the strategy. But where do we have to put a lot of focus in is measuring our energy, which I actually think is our most valuable currency right now as leaders, and being able to look at, okay, where do I need to bring more energy? Because that's going to shape the culture. And then where do I need to reset my own energy and step back and rest so I can be able to make a greater impact? And it's being able to kind of gauge that and shift the culture to really looking at what is the measurement of my energy.
Yeah, I really hear that energy management. I think that's a great way to put it because of, what we need to take on today. And again, the world has become so random, and we can't follow, the randomness on a day-to-day basis as crisis after crisis. We'll burn ourselves out completely.
Yeah. So when I first started this business, it was around this belief that, leaders need to kind of progress in two areas when they go about their development. So obviously there's the traditional leadership, capabilities, whether it be, executive presence or presentation skills or confidence, relationship building, like whatever that is. So that needs to happen. But there also needs to be this sort of whole life management piece around preventing burnout, looking at stress, looking at overall wellness, not as nice to do, but as like a part of the strategic equation of making that person a really strong, high performing leader, which will then guide the teams. So I actually think that philosophy is even more true now than ever because of AI shifting things and needing to focus in on the relationship building and energy management and showing up and as your best and being able to really be able to gauge the team in a different type of way that requires understanding the energy out there. Because we're asking our people to do more and we're providing them in some cases with less resources. So we want to make sure our people aren't burning out. And as leaders, obviously we need to be role models of that, but we also need to be, checking in as part of the culture and being able to teach them how to take care of themselves in that way.
So how did you get to where you are today and these insights that you're providing? Because when we met, you were vice president of marketing in a really important, a really huge industry within not just Canada, but globally. And I used to say to people, I just write emails and any time of day send them off. Don't return them until it's your work day or whatever. But you're one of those people who would just return them when you got them, kind of thing. Like you were working. So I mean, I love what you're saying today, but how did your journey as a leader come from very senior within an industry to this adaptability?
Well, I was 31 when I was a vice president, so pretty young. I moved up pretty quick. And I look at right from the get-go, I was carving things out for like every day. I took a lunch. I worked for companies where sometimes the leader would give me a glare or my colleagues would be eating out of their little brown bags. And I say, see ya, I'm taking a lunch. I work out every day, all of these things. So that helped me be high performing. Right. So I was able to return the emails. I was able to do all these things because I was building in space for me throughout. Now, obviously, as people have kids and, as part of my journey, I suffered a severe brain injury 13 years ago that has been life changing. Yes, I've learned all kinds of things from top brain experts all around that I now incorporate through my leadership work. But that's changed me in many ways, right? My husband passed away 6 years ago of esophageal cancer. And, I was raising our two little girls who are now teenagers, and this all happened just a couple months before COVID unfolded too. So I've had to pivot. I've had to be resilient. And so I think, I've had to really lean into these lessons that I learned early on and maybe sometimes lost along the way and then kind of picked up. So I think that's really been an important part of the journey in shaping who I am.
And I guess that's why, when you talk about it and you talk about, we've talked about some of the outcomes or the things that you see, but what goes into it, you talk about neuroscience and resilience science and mindfulness. How do those sort of connect to create some of the outcomes you've chatted about?
Well, neuroscience is essentially like looking at the brain and how it works. So, for instance, an example could be flight or fight. And that often happens for leaders when we're working, right? Like something happens, a crisis or even a mini crisis, and it kind of sends us off a little bit inside, even if we keep calm on the outside. So, part of what I help leaders with is doing things to help reset their nervous system a bit around that. So then they can kind of take things from more of a calm internal standpoint. So the neuroscience and then the resilience is really around the idea of being able to bounce. I call it bounce forward. So when you have a challenge, how do you take that, learn what you need to extract, even though it can be very, very uncomfortable too, because depending on the severity of what you've gone through, and have post-traumatic growth through that. So you come forward stronger. And then the mindfulness piece that you mentioned has been a game changer in my life. And that is looking at, the work I do is around teaching people to be more in the present moment, to notice things, to be able to be aware of your surroundings, whether it's relationships, whether it's energy. And some of that takes the pressure off too, because we get in our heads about our fears and we push too hard. And instead, it's about working smarter. It's always been about working smarter. But with these tools, it really helps enhance our performance when we build that space for innovation, creativity, and that greater peace that comes with practicing the mindfulness, understanding about the neuroscience, and being a resilient leader.
It almost sounds to me like it's about slowing down the world.
Yeah. Or at least yourself.
Yeah, at least myself. And well, it's funny because, and I mentioned my late father before, but he used to tell me, just break when you're up against really severe challenges, break the day into like 15-minute segments. Focus on one challenge, break it down, and it seems like what you're saying, again, you're slowing yourself down, you're controlling yourself. I think in some ways that's what he was telling me, because we if you have 8 challenges and you're going around like a pinball machine, if anybody remembers those,
I do.
you can't focus. You can't come to a really strong solution for anything.
Yeah.
If you're out of control.
I was setting up a baby gate with my daughters, not for them, but for our dog, who I don't want falling down these steep stairs here, but last night. And so people, were trying to follow these instructions, and I'm like, and I could sense there was a bit of that sort of stress. And I said, nothing ever is going to be resolved from a place of feeling like we're super stressed, right? Like you're not going to be able to work through any sort of solution. So taking a deep breath and even exhaling through the mouth is a great way to reset your nervous system from a biological standpoint. But again, it's that slowing yourself down, and your dad, very smart advice to you. And sometimes when the world is the busiest and we feel like we need to go, 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 and we don't have a moment to ourselves or to actually even work on what we need to, because it's just like we're so behind. Those are the moments that we most need to slow down. And then things will end up actually being further ahead. Our performance will be greater. Our goals will actually come sooner than if we're in our heads going a million miles an hour. It's just the way it works.
So talk about some of the steps that you might take to engage a CEO, because I still have to imagine, there are some that, would be more aware, would be more open, but I think, many would be going, this is great, but the chair's calling. We got a crisis. We got this. So how do you get people to open their minds and take that first step?
Well, it's about building micro moments, right? And it doesn't have to take extra time. So for instance, let's just talk about mindfulness. It doesn't have to take, it's not like it's adding an extra hour to your day. You can do it in whatever you're doing. It's about being present in the moment. So it really comes down to intention and some focus and a desire to shift, right? If a person doesn't want to change or doesn't want to have growth, they're not going to have growth, right? It's almost the placebo effect, right? You've got to want to shift and grow. And when you do put that intention, maybe it's something like, before I go into this meeting, I am going to take a breath in through my nose, out through my mouth, and I'm going to do that for about a minute, because I know the research says that's going to calm me down. Even if I feel calm, and I've done this a zillion times before, when we get into a meeting, our system's going to want to impress, do our best, So this calms us so we can trust ourselves. We come up with more creative ideas, and there's greater innovation around that. So again, that's just one step that somebody could take to help really shift them. But there's a full plan obviously around it, but that's just one thing. And so can I comment a little further on that? Because I think there's another important point is that when you look at, sports athletes, or if they're like a famous keynote speaker or something like that, they're preparing their energy before they enter into anything big. So tonight, the World Series kicks off for baseball. So we got the Blue Jays and the Dodgers. You watch. When you see these athletes, they're breathing out through their mouth. They're breathing in and out through their mouth. They're preparing their energy. For leaders, what are we doing to prepare our energy? We're maybe stopping to go to the bathroom and grab a coffee in between meetings. That's not preparing our energy. We prepare our notes, yes. But what I'm suggesting is prepare your energy. Listen to a song you like that's going to maybe pump you up, or do some self-talk. Do a power pose in the bathroom, which is like, close stall and stand like Superman. That's been proven by Amy Cuddy at Harvard University to make a major impact on things like job interviews and work presentations. So there's a plethora of things that we can do, but start somewhere, start small, and start today.
So is it something that I do on my own? Is there a way to engage my team in my journey, or to open up that journey to create a higher performing team? Because it seems like I could get out of sync with my team possibly if I'm doing what you're saying and, with my energy and bumping myself before a meeting, and everyone else comes in crisis mode. There seems to be a disconnect. So how do I make that work?
Well, I think there's two ways. The first is you role model. So our energy impacts other people's energy. So as much as it feels like there's a disconnect, there would be a shifting. If you show up different, other people are going to show up different. And I think, just a small trip to the grocery store would be an example of that. If you hold the door for someone or smile or say, have a nice day, there's a reaction to that. For the most part, it would be favorable, right? So you can bring that energy to your team. The second thing is authentic leadership and authentic conversations. So telling your team, hey, you know what? I actually want to set us up for success, and I've got to focus on performance teams. And I know you guys are going in many different directions, but here's how I'm trying to show up, and I'm challenging you, and I'm building supports in place for you to also show up that way. I understand it's a different way. We've wired our brains to act a different way during crisis and busyness. So we got to be patient with each other, but let's kind of support each other through this, and just kind of laying all the cards on the table and being very honest with the goals.
So Carey-Ann, it's amazing how fast half an hour can go. And I'm in conversation with Carey-Ann Oestreicher, CEO and executive coach at Potential Unlimited. Carey-Ann, how do people reach out to you? How do they connect and start on their journey?
Well, they can reach out to me. My contact information is all on my website, which is potentialunlimited.ca. And from there, I'm very active in LinkedIn and Instagram and the different socials. And, just connect with me, be a part of this exciting chapter. And I think that the sky's the limit for us. I understand it's different, it's new, but nothing, good has ever come from things being the same. Sometimes it's about reaching up and grabbing forward and really putting yourself out there. So I encourage you to do that.
Carey-Ann, as always, it's great catching up with you. Thank you for being part of Say Hi to the Future today.
Thank you, Ken. Appreciate it.
If you enjoyed this episode and you want to support our show, leave us a review and join our mailing list by visiting www.spyder.works. That's SPYDER.works, and subscribe to our channel. Leave us a comment with who we should interview next. Thank you for listening, and see you all next Friday.